When you have a show about gratitude, you've got to be grateful for your sponsors. And in that life of gratitude, we all have guides. Somebody that guided us through our lives, that made us appreciate those things that we have. And that's why I'm so delighted and so grateful for our sponsor, Life Guides. Life Guides is a peer-to-peer community that helps people navigate through their day-to-day stressors by providing a place of empathy, listening, wisdom, and support with a guide who has walked in your shoes, experiencing the same challenge or life experience as you. A true life guide. And because you're listening to our gratitude podcast, if you go to their website, lifeguides.com/schedule a demo and add the code HEALTHY2021. The code is HEALTHY2021 in the free text box. You'll get 2 months of their services for free. 2 months for free. So sign up, show your team you care, get a life guide, be grateful for those guides in your life, as I am grateful for our sponsor, Life Guides. Hey, welcome to Leading with Gratitude Live. I'm your host, Chester Elton, the Apostle of Appreciation, coming to you from the gratitude epicenter of the universe, Summit, New Jersey. Hey, we're live streaming on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, all brought to you by the wonderful people at the Methods Network. If you're looking for great production and great, just a great video experience, Methods are your guys. We're also, by the way, dual streaming on Marshall Goldsmith's LinkedIn Live. So between Marshall and I, we've got just under 2 million followers. We hope that all of you will show up for our next guest. She is amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about our wonderful guest, Dorie Clark. Dorie and I have been friends for a long time, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have her on the show. Dorie has been named one of the top 50 business thinkers in the world by Thinkers 50, was recognized as the #1 communication coach in the world by Marshall Goldsmith Leading Global Coaches Awards. Dorie is a consultant and keynote speaker, teaches executive education at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business, as well as the Columbia Business School. She is the author of Entrepreneurial You, her latest book, Reinventing You and Standout, which was named the #1 leadership book of 2015 by Inc. magazine. A former presidential campaign spokeswoman, Clark has been described by the New York Times as an expert at self-reinvention and helping others make changes in their lives. A frequent contributor to the Harvard Business Review, she consults and speaks for clients including Google, Microsoft, and the World Bank. Please welcome to the show my dear friend, Dorie Clark. Dorie, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh my goodness, Chester, it's great to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, we love our community, this gratitude community, and I'm just so delighted to introduce you to them all. As you know, because you've got your own live show, we get people from all around the world. We've got Terry Parker from Colorado, Kristen Petrucci from Utah, Kristen from Cameroon. We've got Idadar, I hope I said that right, from Pakistan. And by the way, Princess Abuwan Igalashi Afawaje from Nigeria. That is a mouthful. So welcome everybody to the show. Dorie, it's so funny. We always say, look, give us 30 minutes and we'll give you, great information, great inspiration, and a roadmap to create your own culture of gratitude at home and at work. And what I'm excited about to have you on the show is you talk about, reinventing your brand and living your brand. Your latest book, though, The Entrepreneurial You, is your latest work. So talk to us a little bit about that book and why you wrote it and why it's so important, not just for entrepreneurs, but for people in business, during the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chester. So in writing Entrepreneurial You, I really wanted to accomplish a couple of goals. The first one is to really talk about the importance of thinking entrepreneurially, even if you work inside of a corporation. I mean, we all know, especially given what we've seen around us with COVID, that many of the things that we think of as being solid and steady and stable really aren't. Things can change at a moment's notice. And so learning to think like an entrepreneur, to be nimble and be adaptable, and to make that part of your toolkit is part of what can make you essential in your business. And when things are going down, heaven forbid, there might be cuts or layoffs or things like that. You want to be someone who is recognized by your peers and colleagues as someone who is essential to the mission. And being an intrapreneur, thinking entrepreneurially within your company can help you do that. The second thing that I was really hoping to accomplish was sharing the importance of creating multiple revenue streams in your business and in your life. I know this personally because when I started my career, I was a journalist and I actually got laid off, and it really hammered home for me. Oh my gosh, one day you have this, steady job, it's 100% of your income, and the very next day you have 0% of your income. Whereas for any of us, even if we have a regular day job, cultivating a side business or a side income stream helps make you a lot more resilient, because if anything changes, you have something to fall back on.
I love that entrepreneur that you said right there, to be of value inside your company. Now, I'm going to admit, I have benefited from your coaching. The multiple revenue streams was such an important aspect of our business. As you know, my co-author, Adrian Gossick, and I mean, 90% of our revenue was speaking, and all of a sudden that went to zero in a hurry. So when you talk about multiple streams of revenue, you talk about the entrepreneur, so creating opportunities within the company. Do you encourage people to have, like, as Uber would say, like a side gig, just in case, if you're anxious about your full-time job? Is that kind of what you're saying as well?
I actually do encourage people to start thinking about that. Perhaps not literally to be an Uber driver, because that's not usually the best way to make a lot of money. But for almost any professional, there are things that you can do. Sometimes it may relate to the job that you have. Of course, you need to be mindful of any non-compete policies. But, let's say you're an HR professional. If you are, you could probably start now making money on the side, nights and weekends, just a little bit, test it out, helping people with their resumes, helping people with their LinkedIn profiles. Those are skills that you have that other people are willing to pay for. For other people, it's really a question. Sometimes folks say, well, I don't know where I'd start, or I don't know what people would pay me for. But the best thing to ask yourself is, what are people already coming to you for? Your friends know what you're good at. And so you might be the person in your social circle that everyone's constantly asking, oh, hey, I need to buy a new phone. What model should I get? Maybe you have a lot of tech experience. You can actually charge for that. Or if you're a great photographer, that obviously is a great potential side business. And if you experiment just a little bit now, then it helps you ease into building a side business. So it doesn't have to be a kind of traumatic thing, but the benefit really accrues over time.
That's very cool. It is interesting. You talk about building your community, and our gratitude community is so much fun. We've got Bridget from South Africa is tuned in, and Josie from Angola. We've got Nigeria. I'm gonna mess up your name here, Amus, but I'm sorry. It's the Big O from Nigeria. And
you are big in Africa, Chester. Mazel.
Yes, we are. And Dr. Rosanna from the UK. As you guys are watching and listening to Dorie, I know you're going to have questions about how can I become the entrepreneur, or the intrapreneur. And we're going to funnel all our questions through a new member of our team. Janice Perkins is the question command center guru. Let's put her up on the screen here really quick. Brent, yeah, she's wearing her beautiful orange there. Come to ribbon in color from Wichita, Kansas. So send your questions in the chat box, and Janice will curate them and we'll answer them as we go. So wave to your fans, Janice. Good fun. So, my next question is, and you talk about one of the most, you are one of the most positive people I know. I mean, you're always up. And I know that you have down days, because we all do. When you're an entrepreneur, or you're that entrepreneur at work, and times get hard like they are now, what are some of the things you do to keep yourself in that positive mindset that I know is so important for entrepreneurs?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that I would suggest, Chester. I mean, the first one is that I am a fan of action, because often, you know better than anyone, you're writing a great book that's coming out in May called Anxiety at Work. So you know that one of the most destructive things that we can do if we are feeling down is to ruminate and to obsess about things and just kind of a loop in our heads. And so taking some kind of action can be really powerful, because it means that we're moving forward in some way. So I know in my own business in March and April, when the shape of the pandemic was not yet clear, when it seemed like, oh my gosh, I might not earn any money for the rest of the year. Like maybe the world will literally shut down. In that case, I sprung into action. And part of the way that I was able to basically distract myself from fears and loops was I actually did a launch of a course that I run, the Recognized Expert course in community. And I hadn't been planning on doing a spring launch, but I decided to do one. And I actually created and launched 3 new courses during a 2-month period. Wow. I mean, it was madcap, but it kept me distracted on productive things. The second thing is I am definitely a fan of, trying to be just kinder and gentler to ourselves during these difficult times. I think the key is sort of switching up the method. So for instance, I have gone through periods during the pandemic where, I was eating a lot of ice cream. And I think that's good for a while. I think the key is just don't keep eating ice cream. Maybe switch to a different nice thing you do for yourself.
I love that. For me, and you and I are both very social people. And the fact that we've been locked down and there are days we don't ever leave our apartments or our homes is to just get in motion. Get up and, like you say, get a project, get involved, get in motion. The thing I love about our gratitude community here, Dorie, is they're very coachable. So I said, hey, put your questions in the chat box. And son of a gun, we've got a question. So let's go to Janice Perkins at the Question Command Center in Wichita, Kansas. Janice, what do you got for Dorie?
Hello. This question comes from Ikidar in Pakistan. The question is, how beneficial would it be to take risks of changing the nature of your business in this pandemic?
Ooh, good question.
Wonderful question. Thank you. So I think risk is a really interesting question, especially during times like this in the pandemic. So there's a couple of options, right? In some cases, the pandemic may be forcing us to change our business. And, if that's the case, I mean, for instance, let's say you operated a restaurant and now guess what? You're not allowed to have indoor dining. So you have to get creative about delivery or about takeout or about outdoor dining. That's not really a risk at all in some ways, because it's you reacting to changed circumstances, and you have to do it. So I would say, that's not actually risky. That's just necessary adaptation. I think when we think about risk, often it's about, oh, should I try this new thing that's unproven? I don't have to do it, but should I do it? And in that case, I am a big fan of, and I talk about this in my book, Entrepreneurial You, of what's known as the lean startup methodology. And the idea behind that is that you do the smallest possible test to try to validate whether something is a good idea. Things become dangerous. They actually do become really risky if you're putting a lot of time or a lot of money into them. But if you run a small bet, if you say, you know what? I'm going to try to do, I'll put a day of my time into this, or, you know what, I'll just give it a go. Let's see what we can do for $50. If something doesn't work, it's actually not a big deal because you have gambled, quote unquote, with something that you can afford to lose, and you have more data as a result of it. Now, if it turns out that people like it, if it seems promising, well, then put a little more time, a little more money into it and keep it going. But you just never get out over your skis. You never want to gamble more than you can afford to lose. And then by doing that, you've essentially eliminated risk in your business changes.
It's kind of baby steps, right? Mitigate that risk. I love the expression, don't get too far over your skis, which leads us right back to the Question Command Center, because Kristen from Utah has a question, and great skiing in Utah, as we well know. So let's send it back to Janice. What's Kristen want to know?
She's skiing and texting right now. So she would like to know How do you know what to put your energy into, your time and your investment? How do you know when it's worth it to take that risk?
So true, Kristen. And it ties in perfectly with the previous question. I am a big fan in the beginning of testing a lot of different things, because the truth is, in the beginning, you don't know. You're just making wild, random guesses. And the only way that you begin to know is to see what kind of feedback comes back from the marketplace. So I'll give you an example of this. When we're going back in time 10, 12 years, I really wanted to write my first book. I really wanted to get some ideas out there. Actually, my first book, it's right behind me. You can see, it's very hard to calibrate that. You see the poster for Reinventing You. That was my first book. It came out in 2013. And so I wanted to write a book, but I wasn't exactly sure what. I had ideas. And I actually, in 1 year, in 2009, I wrote 3 different book proposals, and all of them got turned down, just like no one was interested. And I was like, oh, fine. Okay. Harumph. And so what all the agents and all the editors said is, you should be blogging, you should be building your brand. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And so it was not what I wanted to do. But what I didn't realize, and it's actually quite powerful, is that in addition to building your brand, what blogging allows you to do is it allows you to test your ideas. And so ultimately what ended up leading to my first book contract was I wrote a blog article for Harvard Business Review about personal and professional reinvention, which became popular. And so HBR asked me, could I expand it into a magazine article, which I did. And from there, I started getting people reaching out to me saying, hey, have you thought about turning this into a book? And ultimately I did. But I never would have known that reinvention was a topic that resonated. I couldn't have guessed that. I had all kinds of other ideas. That wasn't one of them. But so whatever the equivalent is in your world of, how do you blow on the dandelion and sort of see where the seeds fall? I wrote, 100 blog posts to see what stuck. Or, you can do a bunch of little tests, little projects, little offerings, and then see where the momentum is and go toward that.
So I'm reading this wonderful book, and it says to do exactly what you just said, to test drive your path. And that's really what you're talking about, right? Now, my favorite chapter in this book, by the way, is research your destination. And I think that's what you're talking about here a little bit, isn't it? I mean, figure out, do the research, put in the time, and figure out where you want to go. Did I get that right? By the way, I love this book.
Oh, thank you, Chester. Yes, absolutely. You want to research the destination. You also, cats like to research destinations as well. Sometimes their destination is across your face, so that happens. But ultimately, when it comes to reinventing yourself professionally, there's 3 major steps that you need to think about. The first is understanding where you are now. What's your current brand? How are you perceived by other people? The second, which is really important, is understanding where you want to go. As you say, research the destination, because you need to sort of calibrate it. Once you understand where you want to go, then you can work backwards and say, all right, well, how do I figure out this journey? What are the steps that I need to take? And then the third part is what I call living out your brand, because ultimately, reinvention is not a one-time thing. It's kind of a continual thing, right? We're living it out. We're constantly meeting new people, interacting with new people. And so it's about the small choices that we make every day in terms of how we are in the world, how we present ourselves to others, that really demonstrates who we are. But researching your destination is critical, because you might think that you know exactly where you want to go, but we're not always perfectly well informed. In Reinventing You, I tell the story about a woman who was absolutely convinced that what she wanted to do was to become a floral arranger. And, she loved flowers. She was creative. She thought this would be perfect. And so her career coach says to her, well, have you ever, shadowed anyone? Have you ever spent any time arranging flowers? And the woman said, oh, no, but I don't need to. I already know. And the career coach is like, maybe just humor me. Maybe just give it a try. And this woman, she signs on for a day. Literally, she leaves at lunch and she never goes back, because the one thing she hadn't counted on was they keep it like 60 degrees in the flower shop because they're working with these flowers. And she was so cold and miserable. She said, I can't work like this. And so she realized, okay, that's not the path. So you do need to do some research so you don't work so hard to reach a destination you don't want.
Yeah, you find out when you get there that you hate this place, right? Well, listen, you're the number one communication coach on the planet. And so we're going to give you a chance to communicate to a couple of our listeners. We got a couple more questions. We're going to send it back to Janice. And by the way, just another plug for our good friends at Methods. I mean, they produce phenomenal shows. If you're looking to some great production or training, methodsof.com, that's your destination. So, Janice, we got a question from South Africa. We got a question from Tennessee. We're all around the globe. Take it away.
We are. The question from Bridget in South Africa. She is an HR manager, Dorie, and she's struggling with balancing self-care and how to help other people through this pandemic year.
Yeah. So true. I think probably all of us are in a similar place, right? We have these kind of bromides that we might resort to, like, put on your own oxygen mask first. But how does that play out? How do we actually apply that? These are challenging things. I think that it is true. I mean, it does speak to a truth that obviously if you are at a place where you are feeling so burned out or pulled in a million directions that you are resentful of other people, which can happen sometimes, if we've ever been kind of like hangry or whatever, there might be this perfectly innocent person and we snap at them because, we're just, we haven't eaten or whatever. And ultimately 9 months of the pandemic is kind of that times 1,000. So we do need to be taking care of ourselves. But ultimately, Marshall Goldsmith, who is a wonderful peer and mentor to both Chester and myself. We're part of his 100 coaches community. He's been doing some really interesting research about empathy recently, and in some ways kind of the limits of empathy, that it is very important, of course, as good, thoughtful people, to be empathetic toward others and to be attuned to their needs. But also we have to just watch ourselves that we're not so empathetic that we get embroiled in literally feeling their same problems, because that doesn't do anyone any good, because it makes us less likely to be able to help them if we're also in that state of angst. So I think holding those things in tension and just realizing we're all doing the best we can and trying to care and hold that level of care for other people while realizing we can't do everything.
Excellent advice. By the way, we're getting huge feedback on your cat. Everybody loves the cat.
Oh,
so what is your cat's name?
Oh, his name is Philip, and he is a star to be. If you are a Hollywood agent, Philip is looking for representation.
Excellent. I knew time would blow by for us. We got another question from Tennessee. We'll send it back to Janice for that. And then we've got, I'm really interested in you giving us some great tips and some wrap up at the end as well. So Janice, we've got a question from Tennessee, I believe.
Yes, it's from Beth in Tennessee. And she's wondering, right now she's unemployed, and she's wondering, is this a great time to change career paths? She's wondering how to do that.
Yes, Beth, if you want to change careers, this actually is a great time. And here's one big reason for it. Being unemployed right now, you can look at sort of the downside, which is, oh my gosh, it's so hard to find a position. So many people are unemployed. But actually, I think much better when we can to look at the bright side. The good news about being unemployed right now is that no one is holding it against you, I say in air quotes, because people understand it's not that you lost your job because you're not good. It's that everybody lost their job because of COVID. So sometimes, unfortunately, there can be a little bit of a stigma about being laid off. Not right now. People get it. They totally get it, especially if you're in an industry that has been disproportionately impacted, whether it's hospitality or entertainment, et cetera. So I think the key thing when you are reinventing yourself, and this is something I really learned in the course of writing Reinventing You, it seems clear to us oftentimes how our skills are transferable. It is not clear to other people. They just, they don't have the bandwidth to think about it. They don't have the time to think about it. They're not going to expend the mental energy. So you really have to connect the dots for them. So be very explicit about how the things that you learned how to do at your previous company, how that translates, and just make it crystal clear, that narrative about how you can apply it and how it can add value in your new space. Don't assume they'll know, because they won't. And the second thing that I would encourage, it is always a million times easier if you're making a career shift if you have some kind of a friend or ally that can help make the case for you. Because most people, they're going to be a little bit like sort of lazy about it or playing it safe. Like, I don't know, she's from this other industry, blah, blah, blah. And so what really can kind of get you over the hump is if you have an advocate inside the company that is able to say, no, seriously, she is good and she knows how to do this. It'll take her 5 minutes to learn, how it works in this industry, but she has the underlying skills. Give her a chance. And so it's really important for you to be reaching out to your network now, because they are going to be very helpful to you in the process of making your reinvention into a new industry.
I love that. I've got a friend who's an executive placement guy. He said 87% of jobs are filled on the recommendation of a friend. So, we've got 4 minutes to go. So we're going to go into hyperspeed right here. So give me a couple of tips on how to build a great network for people like Beth in Tennessee that are saying, look, I'm looking to change my career. Give me 3 really quick tips on how do I build that great network that's going to help me find my next opportunity. Go.
Fantastic, Chester. All right. Three quick tips, speed round for networking. I would say number 1, don't give up on networking during COVID. Obviously, it's changed. We're not necessarily going to big mixers anymore. But you actually, and I have been doing this personally, you can do Zoom cocktails with people. And it's a great way to stay connected to people around the country that perhaps you haven't seen for a while. So consider virtual forms of networking. Number 2, one of the best ways, especially if you're job hunting, is to focus on so-called dormant ties. So use this as an opportunity. I mean, hey, COVID's a good time to check in on people in general, but send a note, ping somebody that you haven't talked to or haven't worked with in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, or an old college friend. Those people are almost always happy to hear from you. And it's nice to renew your acquaintanceship, because who knows where they've ended up. It could be something interesting. And number 3, when it comes to building your network, what I would say is ultimately it is, this is a time during COVID when I think for a lot of us, our worlds have shrunk. Certainly we're not going as many places. We're not seeing as many people. But it's important to make sure that we are thinking about the most important people. I mean, obviously, yes, your family's important, but I mean your most important business connections. Literally think about making a list of your top 20 or top 50 people that are important to you, and actually reach out. If you have not talked to those people, schedule a Zoom call or send them an email. You want to keep those connections warm and not let them languish for a year just because we've gotten sloppy because of COVID.
Excellent advice. Okay, so 3 things that you want people to remember from this conversation. And by the way, seriously, you got 20 seconds, so talk really fast. What are 3 things that you want people to remember?
Thank you, Chester. That's amazing. Are you flashing them on the screen? Because I know I wrote them before into the chat box, and I want to make sure I'm saying the same thing that I actually wrote. I don't even know, but I'll tell you. Number 1,
Brent will take care of you. Here we go. There you go.
Oh, good. Amazing. Really useful. If you don't know what to share on social media, like what should I put on social media? It doesn't have to be your own stuff. Amplify the voices of the people you respect. That's a great win-win to help spread the word about cool people. Number 2, there's never been a better time. You can start today to actually create a side gig or a side income stream for yourself. That is one of the best things that you can do. And the third piece that we can be thinking about is, so reinvention, it is a process, and you have to sort of do it over time. This is not a one-time thing about, oh, now I'm done. You want to consciously be thinking, what message am I sending based on what I talk about, how I treat people, and who I show up as in the world. And if we can get that in alignment with where you want to go, then that is exactly right.
You were great. You passed the lightning round. Hey, listen, we've got a lot of questions that we're not going to be able to get to. Safe Fun from Gambia has some questions and so on. Where can people know more about your work and take your amazing assessment of becoming an entrepreneur?
Thank you so much, Chester. And thank you so much, friends, for tuning in. If you want to learn more about my work or actually get access, I have more than 700 articles that I've written for places like Harvard Business Review and Forbes. You can get them for free at dorieclark.com. And Chester was mentioning my Reinventing You self-assessment. It's an 88-question self-assessment, and you can get that for free at dorieclark.com/entrepreneur.
Awesome. And don't forget her great books, Reinventing You. I love that book. Entrepreneurial You, her latest. Last quick question. We always ask our guests, where did you find your gratitude today, Dorie? Where did you find your gratitude?
Thank you so much, Chester. I'm actually grateful to a mutual friend of ours, Alyssa Cohn. We are partnering on a new project for next year, and we have spent a lot of time over the past few weeks really strategizing about that, and that's been very exciting. Some people say don't do business with your friends. I say only do business with your friends because it makes business a lot more fun.
Excellent. Hey, stick around. We're going to do a little postmortem, but I just want to thank you so much. Reinventing You, Entrepreneurial You. Look her up on her website. Literally, she's one of my dear friends. I have so much respect for the work you do. We want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, our publisher. We've got a great little sponsorship little video here. This is from our friends at Harvard Business. Alan Mullally said, I love this book, Leading with Gratitude and a Subtle Call to Action. Buy me. Hey, listen, we love working with the great folks at the Methods Network. Look us up. They've got great training. If you're looking for any kind of online conferencing, they're amazing. Quick shout out to Janice Perkins and our Question Command Center. They're in Wichita, Kansas. To the behind the scenes, Christy Lawrence, and of course, the world's greatest online producer out of Austin, Texas, Brent Klein. So, I think we got to bring back our dance it out. We want to leave you on a really positive note. Be grateful, be kind, be forgiving, put gratitude into your day. So, Dorie, I know we're going to do the white man dance here. We're going to dance it out. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Look us up online. We've got all kinds of fun stuff. And never forget, Methods Network. We'll see you next week.